about 11 years old, my family moved into a duplex on the edge of town. It wasn't run down exactly, but everything about it felt forgotten. The paint was chipped, the wooden stairs groaned every time you stepped on them, and the backyard was eaten up by weeds taller than me. My mom said it was just a starter home until she saved up for something nicer. But even on the very first night, I knew there was something wrong about the place. My bedroom was upstairs, at the end of a short hallway that always seemed darker than the rest of the house. No matter how many light bulbs my mom replaced, the hall light would flicker like it didn't want to stay on. I told myself it was just bad wiring. I wanted to believe that. The first week, nothing major happened, just small things. I'd hear creaks and knocks in the walls, but it was an old place, so I shrugged it off. Then one night, I woke up because I heard footsteps. Not heavy ones. Light, deliberate steps in the hall outside my door. At first, I thought it was my mom, but when I listened harder, I realized something strange. The footsteps weren't moving away or closer. They were just staying there, like someone was standing still outside my door, waiting. I pulled the blanket over my head and stayed that way until morning. The next night, it happened again. This time, I worked up the courage to whisper, "Mom?" But there was no reply, just silence, the kind that feels like the whole house is holding its breath. When I finally opened the door the next morning, something stopped me cold. Right outside, on the wooden floor, were footprints. Small, bare footprints. But they weren't from me, and they weren't from my mom. At that time of year, it was the middle of winter, and nobody in the house was walking barefoot. The weirdest part, the prints weren't facing away from my door. They were facing toward it. I didn't tell my mom at first. I told myself maybe they were old stains in the wood, something normal. But a few days later, my younger cousin, who was only 7, came to stay the weekend. The first night, he woke up crying. When I asked him what was wrong, he said, "There's a tall man in the hallway. He keeps peeking in." I froze because that's exactly what I had felt, but I had never told anyone. My mom brushed it off as a nightmare. She tucked him back in, but after she left, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "He doesn't like when the door is closed." That night, I barely slept. Every time the house moaned or shifted, I swore I heard something pressing against my door. The worst night came about 2 weeks later. My mom was working late, and I was home alone. I was sitting in the living room, doing homework, when I heard the stairs creak. Slowly, one by one, I froze, staring at the staircase, waiting to see my mom's head appear at the top. But nothing did. The sound stopped halfway up, as if someone was crouched there, waiting. I almost convinced myself it was just the house. But then I heard whispering, faint, broken words I couldn't understand, like someone muttering into the walls themselves. My chest got tight, my ears burned, and for the first time, I felt real terror. I turned on the TV to drown it out. But that night, when I finally went to bed, I woke up to cold air on my face. My bedroom window was open. Thing is, I never opened it because the lock was almost rusted shut. But now it stood wide, curtains floating in the night air. When I sat up, I saw him, a figure, impossibly tall, standing halfway in the shadows of my hallway. I couldn't see his face, but I could see his hand, a thin, bone-white hand, holding the doorknob, not opening it, just holding it. Slowly, he bent forward, and I realized his head was tilted unnaturally low, his neck bending in a way no person's should. I shut my eyes, praying, trying to believe it wasn't real. When I finally opened them, my door was wide open. My room was empty, but on the floor beside my bed, pressed clearly into the wood, were fresh footprints again. The next morning, I told my mom everything. To my surprise, she didn't laugh. She didn't tell me I imagined it. She just went very still, then said, "Don't worry about it. He's never hurt anyone. He's never hurt anyone." Those exact words, like she knew. We moved out of that duplex a month later, without explanation. My mom said she didn't like the landlord, but I knew that wasn't the real reason. Even now, as an adult, when I ask her about it, she changes the subject. But I still remember those nights. I still remember that hand on the doorknob. And sometimes, when I'm lying awake too late at night, I hear it again. Slow, patient footsteps in the hall, stopping just outside the door. When I was 23, I finally moved out of my family's house and into a city apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, just an older building tucked between a laundromat and a row of other apartments. The elevator hardly ever worked, and my little corner unit always smelled like dust and old paint. At first, I liked the idea of living alone. No parents, no noise, just silence to do whatever I wanted. The city felt alive all the time. Sirens, people shouting, music echoing from open windows. But inside my tiny apartment, it felt like another world entirely. Sometimes so quiet, the only sound was the distant groaning of pipes or the icebox humming in the kitchen. The first weird thing that happened was with my phone. I was texting my friend late at night, lying in bed, when the screen flickered and froze. I thought nothing of it, but a moment later, I got a text from an unknown number. It just said, "At the door." I figured it was spam, so I blocked it. A week later, my doorbell rang at exactly 2:14 a.m. I'm a heavy sleeper, so I almost didn't wake up, but I stumbled over and called out, "Who is it?" Just silence. No footsteps shuffling away. My peephole only showed the flickering hallway light. I tried to tell myself it was some drunk neighbor hitting the wrong buzzer. But then, night after night, I started hearing footsteps outside my door around the same time. Slow, careful footsteps, as if someone was trying not to be heard. I'd listen, my heart racing, until the sound faded. One night, I saw something stranger. My front door has this old security chain that rattles if you pull on the handle. I was lying in bed when I heard that chain tapping, as if someone was pushing the door over and over, but not quite enough to break the lock. I didn't move, just stared at the cracked ceiling, counting each tap. After about a minute, it stopped. I tried to convince myself that maybe it was all in my head, some side effect of living alone for the first time and never really sleeping enough. But then, the apartment's built-in intercom started acting up. It would buzz in the middle of the day, or even late at night, and when I answered, only static. Except for once, I pressed the button. Instead of static, I heard whispering, just frantic whispers, overlapping, impossible to pick out, but definitely voices. I froze. My hands went numb. Then I heard, faintly, "Let us in." After that, I started checking the locks every night. Deadbolt, chain, handle. I stopped answering the intercom, even when it buzzed for minutes at a time. Then, right before dawn one morning, I woke up gasping for breath, my body paralyzed. I couldn't move, couldn't open my mouth to scream. In the faint light seeping through the window, I saw the outline of a tall figure standing at the foot of my bed. black suit, no face, just a pale, wrinkled blur where the eyes should be. It leaned toward me, and though its mouth didn't move, I heard that voice again, from the intercom, from the whispers, inside my own head. Let me in. When I finally jolted awake, my bedroom door was open, and the hallway light was on. Even though I'd locked everything before going to sleep, I called my mom, tears in my eyes. She said I must have been dreaming, but I know what I saw. That morning, my phone buzzed again. A new text from that same blocked number. Coming up. For weeks after, I kept every light on, barely slept, and jumped every time the intercom rang. Eventually, I scraped enough money together to move. I never told the new tenant what happened. Even now, some nights, I wake up at exactly 2:14, heart pounding, expecting to hear that whisper, "Let me in." When I was 19, I decided I needed to get away from my house for a while. It wasn't anything dramatic at first. I just felt stifled. The walls felt closer, tighter. I needed to be outside, somewhere open, away from everything that felt too loud and too small. So one night, I packed a small bag, just some snacks, a flashlight, and a blanket. I didn't tell anyone. I slipped out the back door, the cool air hitting me like a shock. The streets were quiet, the kind of deep silence only found late at night. I walked towards the park on the edge of town. It was mostly empty, except for a couple of stray cats and the distant hum of city lights. I found a bench beneath a big oak tree. The ground smelled like earth and wet leaves. I spread out my blanket and settled in, staring up at the sky. At first, it felt peaceful. The stars were bright, the air cool. I thought maybe this was what I needed. But then, after a while, something changed. The quiet started feeling too heavy, like the night itself was holding its breath. I heard footsteps, not on the pavement, but soft, crunching sounds way off in the bushes. I spun my flashlight toward the sound, but all I saw was blackness. The trees didn't move, but the shadows shifted, like they were watching me. I grabbed my bag and stood up. The air felt colder now, sharper. I began walking toward the edge of the park, thinking I'd head home. But the path behind me looked different. The streetlights flickered, casting jagged shadows. Then my phone buzzed. I didn't want to check it, but I did. One message. No number, no name. It just said, "Don't go back." I laughed nervously, thinking some prankster was messing with me, but my whole body tensed. I scanned the darkness again. The bushes rustled more, as if something was moving closer. I started walking faster, heart pounding. Another buzz. "We see you." I froze. The bushes exploded with movement. Two glowing eyes stared back at me from the shadows. I ran. Branches whipped my face. The ground turned muddy and uneven. I could hear heavy breathing behind me, slower but steady. I reached the park entrance, gasping for breath. No one was there. The streetlights buzzed and hummed, but the glow of my house felt miles away. Then I noticed the bench where I had been sitting. On it, a single shoe, covered in dirt, like it had been there for days. But I'd been alone all night. I didn't wait to find out what had been stalking me. I ran home, locked every door and window tight. Even now, when I go back to that park, I can't shake the feeling those eyes are still watching, waiting for the night I come back.